classroom to teach sight words. So I first want to start with just a mini talk about the difference between high frequency words, sight words, and snap words. Okay, so high frequency words refers to the number of times that those words are seen in print. So this is that whole like again and again you see the word the. That's a high frequency word. A sight word is a word that you know like the second you see it. Like you know it quickly. So this kind of has to do more with like speed. And this has to do more with like books and text and how often it appears. Okay. So for an individual child, a sight word can easily be like their name or the word mom or the word dad. Okay, those could be their sight words. But the snap words, the ones that come with the TCRWP units of study, those are not like personal to the kids. These are words that not only come up in print, like in books, but these are words that were also selected because of their high utility when kids write, which makes the snap words kind of unique, right? So that's why sometimes you'll see a word in the snap words like mom, and you're like, what? That's not on the Dolch list. Like, no, but it's highly used in kids' writing, which is why it comes into like the snap. And then there's like what Orden Gillingham calls red words, or words that like have to be memorized is what they have typically been, which we'll talk about. But those are kind of like some of the different terms that people are using. For this session and for most articles I think you'll read around sight word teaching, they're all the same thing. They're basically talking about them kind of like all like they're one thing. Okay, so when I started researching like how we should be teaching sight words, I really wanted there to be one list. I really honestly wanted the Teachers College list to be the list. Like I wanted the words that you teach in the TCRWP units of study, these words, I wanted them to be the whole list. They are not the whole list. In fact, if you just teach those words, your kids wouldn't have nearly enough words to read. So one of the things you have to remember is that this list, the one that comes with the units of study, I would think of it more like a starter pack. And I would kind of think like, these words I'm certainly going to teach as they come up in our phonics units of study, but I'm going to be adding lots of words to this list if I'm doing them in shared reading. If they come up in our reading a lot, if kids need it because they need to use it, like I would be looking at that. Okay, like think I can teach more than just these words. And if a word comes up earlier than it comes up in the units of study, just teach it then. Okay. Now, in your units, your resources for today, I'm giving you a high frequency word list. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this list. I know it's a little bit weird to see like lists 1 through 27. But I want to tell you why I made this list. Basically, over time, I got sick of the fact that everybody made the list anyway. Even if no one made it for them, people were making lists. I wanted to marry some systems. So this is what's on this list. All of the Dolch 220. Both sides of the list. All of the TCRWP words, the snap words, introduced in kindergarten and first grade. All of the American Heritage, first 100. The whole Fry list. The top 10 prints the top 10 words that appear in almost all kid print. So basically, if you could imagine me like cross-checking hundreds of words to make sure we had them all. Okay, so then the next thing I did was started to think about how the words are grouped. So in the original Dolch list, those words are grouped by the number of times they appear in print. But that really does not match what the research says we should be doing. What the research says we should be doing is teaching kids their sight words in word families. So like at, cat, and sat, you're going to teach those all together, like as a grouping. You're also going to teach pan, ran, and man all together. So you're going to teach the one word and then show them if you can build that word, then you're also going to be able to build these words too. Okay, so wherever you can, you want to put words that have things in common together. Okay, the other thing you want to do, and this is crazy, you want to teach words that visually are almost the same together. So look at this. It's and sit. You actually want to teach those at the same time, because what that forces kids to do is it forces kids to look through the whole word, look at all the letters, the placement of the letters. Okay, versus just like a quick memorization of the word. So you'll kind of see on this list, you'll see that wherever, now there's always irregulars, right? And like C, for example, you're like, well, why wouldn't you put C with like the long E words? Well, because by the time you get to those, you needed C already. Like you needed C early on, whereas like you're not going to get to long E until somewhere over here on the back. Okay, so again, you can move around on this list, but I really want you to think about, like, I want to do all these together. We, be, he, and she. Okay, and that's going to make your sight word teaching a lot stickier. If I had to tell you one thing you want to change as a result of today, that's it. It's how you're grouping those words, because that's going to be a big deal. The second thing you want to think about is how are you using your Alconin boxes? So like when you build a word, like when you build the word, an irregular word, like said, when you build said with your Alconin boxes, watch what you do. When you build it with Alconin boxes, an irregular word, this is what you want to do. Hey, said, what do you hear at the end? Said. Oh my gosh, in the middle, there's this sound. And only in the word said, we do it like that. That's a little hard part that we just have to memorize. So remember, we used to be like, you have to memorize this whole word. But now we're saying, no, it's regular in certain spots. And then it's irregular in one spot. So we have to memorize that part. Okay. And so whenever you're doing these, you kind of want to do the regular parts and then go back in and fill out the irregular. Okay. Now I have about 5 minutes to give you guys some activities. So when you think about your activities, like what you're going to do with the sight words, I gave you a comprehensive list on the Padlet of different activities that you can do with the sight words that are research-based. So I think one thing you want to think about is if something's not on the list, it's probably because it's not research-based. So like you're not going to find rainbow writing on my list anywhere. Sadly, nothing to back it up. Okay, I'll just show you a couple things that are really cool. Here's one. This is a puzzle. Okay, what's this word? This. Use it in a sentence. Okay, after you use it in the sentence, say the word again. This. Okay, now here's your word puzzle. Can you build it? Okay, Take a picture of it in your head. Try it. Forget? Sneak a peek. And then check. Okay, so you'll notice some things here. Look how I put the digraph together in the puzzle. I didn't used to do that. If you would have put it together, if this was for SAID, it would be SAID. Put the chunks together that would go together in the Alcoin box. Make them turn this over and only flip it if they need it. But give them this because we don't want them spelling it wrong. Okay, and then add that part about use it in a sentence. Use it in a sentence. Read it in a book. Use it in a sentence. Read it in a book. Like even if it's an oral sentence, it's worth it. I think this is crazy. When you have kids like work on these words, look at this. Put the letters really far apart so that they're forced to make each sound. And so I gave you like a series of little activities that you can use. Let me give you one more. How about, I love this one. And if you went to anything with Beth today, you may have heard about this one because it's one of our favorites. You just take a sentence strip and you use the sight words that kids already know. And then you do some objects. So they basically are making their own pattern book, right? Because they're like, it is a horse. Choose a different thing. It is a cow. Turn the page. Where is the horse? And you just change up the objects and the sentence strips. And what's so powerful about this is literally you're just using the same sight words over and over again in different combinations. But you see how that adds like a level of transfer that some of our activities don't. So what I'm always looking for are when you're picking sight word activities and you're trying to decide if this is a good one or not, I want you to think about, does this cause kids to have to do some thinking? Ranking, comparing, thinking. Does this have kids doing some transfer work? So are they doing some reading or are they doing some writing? Real writing, not like tracing, right? And I'm really always constantly looking for that. Is there thinking work? Is there transfer? Then finally, I want to show you like some possibility for assessment, right? So one thing to keep in mind with assessment, and this is how I've been assessing, is that however the kids practice is not the way that you want to assess. So here's what we've done. For list 1, we have the words. Then we ask them to read the words in sentences. Then we choose 2 of the words and have them write them here. So you just cover up the top and say, okay, spell the word see. And the word can. Okay? Because really, to master a list, kids should be able to read all the words, read them in sentences, and spell them. But we felt like it was obnoxious to have them spell every single word. Okay? So if we practice this way, then when you give them the test, per se, see how the words are in a different order? And the sentences are a different combination? Okay, that's because we don't want them just memorizing and regurgitating. Like, we really want to try to see if they can do it in a format. So I gave you guys copies of this, but this is what my teachers have been using, which is if the kids pass a word list, then they put a little sticker on the number 1 and they move on to word list number 2. And this is the recording sheet, and you can see like they're out of an insane number sometimes. That's because when you do these sentences, every single word counts for a point. These are all words that they either are learning on this list or they learned on old lists. Cool? Okay. So that is snap words